Hello, and welcome to another episode of Momentum. I'm your host, Philip Allison. Our guest today is Charlie Hudnall, a 1986 alum in computer engineering. Charlie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Philip. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So computer engineering is obviously one of our important majors in engineering. They're all important, but how did you get started in computer engineering?
Well, I was I was always a tinkerer, really, and so even growing up, I had a motorcycle, as an example, and I would take that motorcycle apart, repair it, do things to it. And so I was just fascinated with mechanical things and just how things worked around me. My dad was a civil engineer, and so when I first started college, as I was entering, I signed up to go into civil engineering. And I thought, well, my dad's a civil engineer, so that's a great path to follow, But they offered computer engineering, and I had bought a Commodore 64 when I was a junior in high school. And computers were really just getting started in the 80s, and the personal computer industry was starting to take off, and I was fascinated by computers. And so I changed all of my classes from sort of the civil engineering major to focus on computer engineering. Now the first classes, they're all common between, but I changed my whole schedule around to make it where I could focus on computer engineering. And that was really driven from a love of electronics, and I bought this computer, and I was really just interested in it. And the timing was right. The college offered the major at a time when I was entering, so that's really how I got started in it.
And I'm going to guess that you don't regret that choice at all.
Absolutely not. It's been a fantastic career. I graduated in 1986, and I've been in this business for 35 years and really love it.
And I guess talk us through a little bit. In 1986 was a little while ago. Just talk us through kind of what your career path has been like.
So I went to college here for 3.5 years, and I was one of the very first computer engineering graduates, I think. So I graduated in December of '86, so it was 3.5 years. My wife was also going to college here. We were engaged at that point, but she was in veterinary school and wasn't scheduled to finish until 1988. So I just decided I would just go and find a job wherever that led me. And I was able to land a job in Fort Worth, Texas at what was then General Dynamics, where they make F-16s. And it was a really cool job. If you've never been there, the plant where they make the planes is literally 1 mile long from start to finish. And aluminum comes in one end, and the plane goes down one side and halfway back, and then they roll it out, and they're painting a plane for whatever Air Force they're making that for. And I grew up in Columbus, Mississippi, so there's 35,000 people, 40,000 people over there. There were 36,000 people that worked at this plant. So this was the biggest, most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life, and I thought, man, they're going to pay me to work at this place? So I spent about 6 years there. We got married during my time there. We bought a home. Merrill practiced veterinary medicine, and I did a variety of things at General Dynamics, but all electronics, right? I designed electronics. I designed, some avionics for aircraft. I did embedded software and started doing things in networking, even way back then, for one computer talking to another computer inside the aircraft, and that sort of drove a fascination with inter-computer communication for me, and so that's a theme that's been with me the rest of my career. In 1992, we decided that we would move back. I worked and got a master's degree while we were in Texas at Southern Methodist, and felt a calling to move back to Mississippi, and so we moved back and started graduate school here. And I actually worked at the university for 2 or 3 years as a research engineer at the Engineering Research Center, across 182 there, and worked in multi-computers and communications networks and that sort of thing. We started having a family, and I left there, and we actually started doing things for myself. Got into the networking industry. Dial-up internet was starting in the 90s. Got into that business for a while, did computer networking. And then eventually I opened an office here in Starkville for a networking company that designed equipment that was based in California. And so it was a friend of mine that I had gone to graduate school with, and he offered me a job. And I said, that'd be great as long as I can stay in Mississippi. And he said, sure. So me and a few guys started an office here, and we worked mostly doing embedded software for networking equipment. And then eventually I moved with that job to North Carolina. And we stayed there for a brief time, still working for the same company. And then I got a call to move to Huntsville, Alabama. And that honestly is where I thought I would start my career, sort of the nearest high-tech town to Starkville, and I thought I would begin my career there, but here I'm ending my career in Huntsville. And I started working at a company that did communications intelligence work, so gathering RF signals over the air for use by the military and other applications. And we just worked as an engineer there, and we eventually sold that business to a larger company, and I stayed with the company. Eventually ran that business, and started doing electronic warfare work, which is sort of combating radar systems, building radar systems, that sort of thing. And have, in the last few years, moved into microelectronics, where we're packaging small components and designing very rugged microelectronics to put in the nose of an aircraft kind of thing. So I'm sort of doing something similar to what I started my career at. And so I've been blessed to do a variety of things over the years, and I'm just I feel like Mississippi State really gave me a good base to work from, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Yeah, that sounds really fascinating. Well, I know one of the things we were talking earlier about your time at Mississippi State, and it's been kind of a family affair. You said your dad was a civil engineer. Did he go to school here as well?
He did, yeah, and he had a non-traditional path to go to college. He grew up on a farm between here and Columbus, Mississippi, and higher education wasn't in the cards for him. Right, he was a farm boy, and then he was drafted to go into the Army. Went into the Army and was able to come out and go to school on the GI Bill. So he was in his early 30s when he went to college. Yeah. And so my dad was a civil engineer. He started a small business in Columbus. My brother, who's just a few years younger than me, went into the family business. He got a civil engineering degree. And so, yeah, we've been, participating in the College of Engineering here at Mississippi State for decades.
Yeah, lifelong Bulldog engineers.
Absolutely, like. Yeah.
So one of the things that we're excited about is you have made a donation to electrical and computer engineering to help develop a makerspace.
Yes.
in Cimarron. And it's certainly, if not the first in the College of Engineering, it's one of the first and one of the first on campus. What led you to kind of make that gift?
So it really goes back to, what I was talking about earlier. I was really always a tinkerer myself, and I was just fascinated with how things worked. And I actually had a mentor when I was in high school that helped me with building electronics and taught me to solder and some of the basic things. And I would save my money up and buy Heath kits when that was a thing and build those. But I didn't really have a space to operate in, right? I just, would get a little counter space, and then my mom would chase me off, and, that sort of thing. And I wasn't an on-campus student when I went to Mississippi State. I commuted and worked because that's what I needed to do to afford to go to college. And I never felt like I had a real space, a home, a home base at the university to go to. And Dr. Kahn, when I was discussing, possibly making a donation to the university, showed me what they had done for the first year engineering students in Cimarron. And I just thought that was a really great space that they had created. And he described that there was sort of a gap between the first year students and junior year. And I remember that, you're off doing calculus and physics and all those kinds of subjects, and you lose connectivity back to your home department. And I thought, well, this would be a cool thing to donate something, provide this space for them, provide that connectivity back to the college and their home department so that we could retain them and continue to rejuvenate interest in their electronics interest, for the long term.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a great opportunity to get students kind of really plugged into the department and kind of let them work on things that they enjoy sometimes without necessarily going through the classroom structure. And
Yeah, and that's my hope, right? That's my hope, is that that will be a home-based space, and both a welcoming space and a useful space for them to do projects, whether they're in ECE or they're doing a project for some other department, for a class they're in, whatever it is, that it's just a good space for them to operate in. That's my hope.
And I guess, we talked a little bit about this, about your background as a tinkerer, and I know with some of the classes in electrical and computer engineering, specifically the senior design class, where the students are really kind of getting involved with a project and something they come up with, and they're coming up with products. And I would see that this would be very beneficial to those kind of students.
I think so, and again, that's our hope here, is that we're connecting it to the senior design space, so that we make it one large continuum of access to 3D printers and machines and things where you can, equipment where you can really make something that's useful and productizable. That's certainly my hope. I've seen some of the projects that the students are doing now, so much more advanced than the kinds of things that we did when I was coming through school, but really, really impressive. And I just wanted to provide, some better facilities and access to some equipment that would just, give them a springboard to do things even more than they're doing now.
Well, I know that space is going to be renovated very soon, and we're very excited about that within the College of Engineering. Just quickly as we wrap up, talking about these students and giving them a springboard, if you could offer them, kind of as somebody who's been in industry for a few years now, what's some advice that you could offer to students that are going to be graduating soon?
Yeah, that's a question you get from time to time when you're at the sort of the twilight of your career, I guess. I guess I'll end it with something my dad told me. You might not be the most talented person, but what you can put into it is effort. So you control your effort. So establish a very strong work ethic and don't get outworked by anybody.
Yeah. Well, that is fantastic advice. And Charlie, we really appreciate you coming in and talking to us about it. And we're excited to see that space when it gets opened up. Opened up in a few months. Yeah. So that's all the time that we have for this episode of Momentum. Remember, you can follow along with all the latest news from the College of Engineering on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and visit our website at bagley.msstate.edu. Thanks for watching.